Hey there, welcome back. Matt Samudio here. Continuing on with our Ubuntu versus Slackware comparison. Okay, so we finished up with some basic initialization of some things on the Slackware side. I'm going to do one more thing on the Slackware before we flip over to the Ubuntu side and do kind of follow up with the equivalent to get us to the equivalent phase. I'm going to do a add my user. So RK4N3 is my typical user, and I have a particular UIG and GID that I kind of use all the time across all my systems. And first we're going to add the group because we use the group when we're adding the user. And my GID is 4242, and the group name is RK4N3. Now I'm going to do the user add -U 4242 -G 4242 -D home RK4N3 -H. A lot of times I like KSH. I'm just going to use bash for the heck of it. I don't have KSH installed right now, so I'm doing a comment me. I'm going to create the actual directory and everything, and the username. So, created that. Now if I do an ID-A RK4N3, I can see I'm in one group. UID and GID are as I like it. Now I'm going to add myself to all the right groups that typically need. And I'm just going to go off the top of my head with these. We're going to use the user mod command. -A says add or append, and -G means this list of groups. So I'm gonna add myself to these list of groups. We're gonna start off with wheel. We're gonna say plug dev, CD-ROM, audio, video. Let's see, users. I think that's probably pretty good to start out with. Plug dev is really important because that kind of gives you access to a lot of the hot plug devices like USB devices and stuff like that. Some of the desktop environments, I believe, use plug dev as, the different kinds of software that they're going to run that accesses devices will rely on you being in the plug dev group, stuff like that. So I don't know tons and tons of the intimate details on it, but that's kind of the summary I can give. And this is the user that we're changing. Blah. So now if I do an ID-ARK43, you can see I'm in all those groups. And that, the most important one, wheel, will allow me to elevate my privilege to root when I need to. Audio, video gives me access to those kinds of devices, which I want because this is my computer. CD-ROM, same thing. Plug dev, I explained that. And the users, you want to be in the users group too. But my primary group is my own group. This lets me, have some extra assurance that when I run programs that are creating files, those files are going to get created group owned by this more private group. So I don't have to worry about group permissions so much. And I can also create some user level policies around using Gmask and stuff like that around access to the files at the group level. Whereas if it was in users, if my primary group ID was users, then every single file that any program I made created would be in this very public group, and so the group permissions would have to be watched a lot more closely and a lot more, it would be more difficult to create my own user-specific policies around that. So there's that. Anyway, okay, so on with, I'm going to log out as root, log in as RK. Oh, let me log back. I forgot to set the password. Password RK43. Another thing to remember. I'm going to set it to some nonsense password here. Okay. So now I can log in. Sudo su do. So now I can become root, no problem. And I have my user ID. I'm all set. Okay, let's flip over to the Ubuntu side. I'm going to bring this over to this side and move this over here temporarily. Flip over to the Ubuntu side and kind of get to the equivalent spot. So I'm logged in as MattBot. MattBot has, because it was the user that was initially created during install, I can sudo su to root, and I have to enter my password. So now I'm root on the Ubuntu box. And just like with the Slackware, I have a set of stuff that I usually do for Ubuntu boxes. Okay. I've had all sorts of problems with IPv6. When you have it enabled, there is some software that just insists on behaving insanely because it tries to use IPv6 for some things that you have to have all sorts of stuff in place and set up right for IPv6 for those pieces of software to not act completely broken. So I've decided for now I just don't want IPv6 enabled on Ubuntu boxes. So this is how you disable it. I go into etc sysctl.conf and you add these lines. I'm going to copy these, paste them. I should keep an editor up here. Oops. I should have an edit shortcut in here. Don't know why I don't. gvim. Get out of this. You don't need to see this clearly or anything. I'm just pasting those lines in there so I have something to read when I'm typing. All right, so I'm going to go into, I'm going to vi etc sysctl.conf. And I'm going to find the IPv6 stuff. IPv6. So it's all here. Let me kind of add it to the bottom. I'm going to put it right here. Net IPv6 .conf .all disable IPv6 equals 1. I'm going to put in a comment here. Disable IPv6. Okay, and I'm going to copy that. IPv6 conf LO. It's like loopback. Disable IPv6 equals 1, and one more. I think it's default. So net IPv6 conf default disable IPv6 equals 1. Okay. Yeah, it's like this is good. This is going to be one of my like commentary type pieces here. I don't understand why people name stuff the way they do. It's like there's a concept of namespaces. So we've already got a namespace here where we've said net.ipv6. We shouldn't have to say anything about IPv6 anymore in the name. So this could be net ipv6.conf.all.disable. Why did they have to put underscore IPv6 in there? You know, it's like what in the naming of things. This is like part of the art of keeping things simple and readable is don't have extra verbosity and redundant pieces of naming. It just tricks the eyes and makes, in my case, it makes my brain go, no, why? Stupid. You know, maybe that's just me, but you know, it's like, why did we have to put underscore IPv6 at the end of all these when we have IPv6 in the actual, you know, first part of the naming? It's like, why? And then again, why do we have to have all three of these? You know, why, if we're saying all disable, why did we have to do specifically for the loopback or default? You know, why wouldn't all disable just disable all? You know, preserving some kind of simplicity and, you know, coherence in naming. That's really important to me. And I really try to do that in all my programming, in all my anything that I create and that I set up. I try to do that. It just bothers me when this kind of stuff creeps in all over the place. And it does. It's all over. It gets to be silly. So anyway, that little rant. I'm sorry if I offended anyone. Sorry. Like Larry the cable Larry the cable guy. I'm sorry, Jesus. I don't know, poor starving people in Ethiopia or whatever. Yeah, that's funny. Okay, I don't need this anymore. All right, so that was my first big thing in Ubuntu. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, you can reload this live. So I can do sysctl-p, and that will kind of refresh. It'll kind of, yeah, so see, it does that stuff. So now IPv6 is actually disabled in my current running system. And then it will, because I put it in the file, it will persist across reboots. So that's kind of cool. That's another thing I appreciate about Ubuntu is they actually, oops, where am I going here? Okay, they actually do have, they've thought of a lot of that stuff where they've separated things out to you persist it in a config file to keep it, to make it permanent, but it also has a side to it where you can make it happen now and in your running system. So they've done a lot of that, which is good. If you're in LXC, a Linux container, I've got some specifics with Ubuntu. We're not in a container at this point, so we're not going to worry about that. Here's this is about creating a container. New insta details to initial. Yeah, okay. So my first exploration of Ubuntu was in Ubuntu Studio, and I was dealing with pro audio hardware. And so I did not want Pulse Audio because Pulse Audio is not really set up for professional audio. I wanted to use Jack. And what happened is Pulse Audio would start up by default. It would take over the audio devices, and Jack, it would not allow Jack to run. So this is in here to disable Pulse Audio at startup. Now, once I have Jack running, then I actually start Pulse Audio, and Pulse Audio just connects to a Jack port, and then all the applications that rely on Pulse Audio can run, and it ends up just going through Jack under the covers, which is great. So that works really good. But this is my little recipe for disabling Pulse Audio. We don't care about that for this deal here. So just so you know, though, that those kind of concerns can be in there. Okay, here's another piece. We'll get into 32-bit compatibility in a while, but this is how you do it in Ubuntu. There's a dpackage command that you add, and then you just do an apt update. And then when you're looking at installing packages for your new instance, there's some basic 32-bit compatibility libraries that you install. And that's it. That for 32-bit compatibility, that's it for Ubuntu. It's really easy, really nice. So the next thing we'll get into, I mean, this is really all I've ever needed to do to tweak Ubuntu for general installation. The next thing we'll get into is the kinds of packages that one might want to install to start out with. And, this is my list, of course. Other people's list may vary. But I'll move on to the next video segment, and we'll get into, for both sides, the Slackware and the Ubuntu side, this kind of first wave of packages that I like to add. And we'll compare from that perspective. And we'll also get into comparing the package installation alternatives or options or the way it works for these two different distributions. So we'll do that in the next segment. Stay tuned. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.